Hey everybody, Carter's back. That's Carter on the drum, and this is teZa.
Boy, listen to that drum head, it's perfect.
Oh yeah? Great.
It's been wet here.
And you're perfect. And I'm perfect. And everybody who's listening, you are perfect. Perfect.
We're all perfect.
Perfect in our imperfections. That's what I like to think.
What is it that you say? When the perfect is taken away from the perfect, only the perfect remains.
Exactly. Right? That's a yogic sutra. So Carter, our topic today is about, really being conscious about the choices we make.
Right.
And for people who are our regular listeners, you have been on sabbatical.
I have.
So what have you been choosing to do with your time rather than sharing here on Z Lord Podcast?
I chose to get involved with 3 projects that are
Three big
extremely
projects.
time-consuming and involving other people and required my attention to the point where
Whoa.
it just was. It just is not. It took the fun out of it.
So how did you get involved with 3? And do you want to tell us just quickly about?
No.
No, you don't want to go into
necessarily.
details?
They're kind of political things.
Well,
one of them was about
the
a college thing.
Well, wait a minute. One of them was our neighborhood thing, which we're all hoping to get away from people putting in a trail that nobody wants. So asphalt trail in the middle of our beautiful greenway, and then the other ones were.
Just a thing that had to do with the current state of the universities in the United States and running to our college with some people that are kind of high-level, powerful people that were, that required a huge effort and a lot of time and energy and then some business things. But basically what it is...
Wait a minute. There was also the Fort Mose project.
Yeah.
So is that the fourth one? Is that the fourth one, or is that the 5th or 6th one?
There's been a lot. And basically what it is that my own particular personality, which I've known about, this has been true for me for 30 years. And when we first got married, we discovered that I get
overwhelmed,
busy by things that I accept too many responsibilities because people come and want you to do stuff. And I know that's true for everybody that's listening here. People want you to do things. And so the tendency is to, especially for productive people, to try to squeeze another thing in there. So now all of a sudden your entire life gets consumed and you just become overwhelmed. And then there's a feeling of you just can't get it all done. You just can't. You just got too much to do. That's what we decided was my MO. And I got involved with some people that were kind of life coach types, which against my will, and I didn't have time for that either. And but
what? I'm following you.
Well,
life
remember
coach
I got
types?
involved with my friend Tony Smith, who was from college, and I just didn't even want to get involved with it. But he's a very powerful, successful guy, and he talked me into getting in with his group to study what I was doing and how I could increase my income and do some certain things. It was kind of I always thought these life coaching things were corny, but I'm telling you, it changed me completely.
So wait a minute, what has this got to do with the projects you've been doing in the last 5 weeks that you've taken a sabbatical from Z Lord Podcast?
Well, I just got too much to do, so I had to stop something. And so the thing that was in my most control was that I just didn't have time to think clearly to bring anything to the table on the podcast thing. And I needed a break anyway because I've been doing it nonstop for a couple of years.
Tony and the coaching.
Well, Tony, we discovered with my working with the coaching was that it's my own personal life is such that I let life choose things for me, and I jam stuff in. So, and I don't think very well about
prioritizing.
And,
it's obvious. It's obvious, Carter.
Yeah, and so, but the result of it is that it ends up becoming disruptive and
you might say a clusterfuck.
Yeah, but it also makes me inefficient, so that I I couldn't get anything done.
Okay, now we got an idea about what's going on. So our topic is how we choose to use our life's energy, whether
Right.
it's right here at this moment to make a choice, whether we're going to go for a run or we're going to eat a donut, or a bigger project or a bigger picture of choosing to, like me, bite off a huge thing like writing a book, and now I'm at the tail end of it, and I'm pretty overwhelmed with all the minutia of getting it out. So those are two
It's the same type of
radically
thing. It's a
different choices, whether it's for the moment, what we're going to do for the next minute, or for our life direction. So do you want to go first, or should I
go ahead.
expound upon that? Oh, okay. Well, choosing is a very spiritual discipline. It's, some people think, oh, no, you just let life happen, and whatever happens, it comes. And, well, that may work for some people, but I think it's true.
Doesn't work for anybody.
Well, you and I, in particular, we work with goal setting, but with the idea that once a goal is made in a very conscious way, we're flexible. We can change that goal if life is pointing a different way while we're in the middle of fulfilling it. But we operate better setting a goal. It's like setting out on a cruise, on a sailboat, not a big ocean liner. But we have to set our sails or point our head of our boat in a certain direction. We can't just let the ocean push us around, because we'll never get to our destination.
Yeah,
right?
but there's a specific way of doing the goals, and real quickly, we've talked about this
Wait a
before.
minute, that's getting confusing now, Carter. Let's just stick to. We're not going to go into the goal setting thing. We can do that at the tail end.
But it's critical to the discussion.
All right.
Because
See, I concede to Carter. You can notice people who are listening. I always let Carter.
No, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I'm just saying that it's important, and this is a discussion, because part of setting your goals is having a quick time to do it, 10 quick minutes. It has to be whimsical. You do it every day for 60 days, and it has to be blue sky thinking, which means that you have to write down what you really want today, that moment, whether you think you can get it or not. So that if you want to own a yacht that costs $5 million today, that goes down on the list. And so what happens is that over a period of time, the goals that you are interested in will emerge, and then you'll have a real clear picture. And once you have the clear picture of your goals, then your life can become infinitely more efficient, because you realize what you really care about. You're able to eliminate things that are superfluously getting in your way and that aren't either fun or productive, and you can choose a lot more clearly on how to not be too crazy. So,
okay, so getting back to our focus today about the power of choosing. And so, Carter, here you are, you're back after 5-week absence. I called it a sabbatical to our listeners, so I didn't want to talk too much about what you were doing. Do you think that those 5 weeks were part of this goal setting that you say? So it actually, you could tell by when it arrived in your life, somebody said, hey, would you help us out, and blah, blah, blah. So there's something inside of you that said, oh, this fits with my long-term goals, my blue sky thinking, those 10 goals that I have been working with for however long.
Yeah.
And so once you start working with this energy of being consciously aware of choices you make, therefore nothing ever happens by accident. Nothing really just it just swept me away, and I didn't have any choice about it.
Well, I think most
doesn't
of
really
us,
happen,
and especially myself, when I was in my younger years, was that I was greatly subject to the whims of fate, because I never knew anything about setting goals. I just didn't come to understand that simple little exercise until I was in my 40s, actually. And I think a lot of us go through life and we just take what comes, like jobs and a lot of us,
or
many
mates
of us,
even. Hello, a lot of people get
mates
married
too.
just because I thought I was supposed to.
Well, you're not necessarily thinking real clearly about things, and you haven't been real clear about what's important to you haven't decided what do you think that is really important in a mate. You just kind of fall in love and the romance, and it gets swept away. And then after 3 or 4 years and the bloom wears off, you're stuck with whoever it was that you chose. And
sex plays a big part in it.
Yeah, sex plays a big part.
When the
and
sexual
you're
energy,
either lucky or you're not
when
lucky.
the sexual energy like dissipates and you're left with the true essence of the person, then it's a different story, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people are lucky, like my dad only knew my mom 4, 5, 6 months. And they had a fantastic marriage. And that happens to a number of people.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen to me.
And it didn't happen to me until you came along.
And 50% of the people in the...
Wait a minute, you're supposed to say until you come along, teZa.
Until you come along, Tess. But 50% of the people, as evidenced by our divorce rate, have that same experience.
Right.
So choosing, like for instance, in my particular time of life right now, is to just say no in many instances when I'm being asked to do something that I really, really don't want to do. And if it's not fun now, we just don't do it. So that's
because we're in a great position.
Well, that's a luxury, yeah.
Yeah, it's a luxury of people who don't have a boss, who don't have, obligations, and like raising kids and stuff. There's a lot of things you do that you don't want to do that are not particularly fun, but we're at that time of life where we can choose.
That's right, and it's also in work situations. Sometimes you just have to work, and it's not so much fun. You just have to do it. But you can choose to find the good in it, and you can choose to change, and there's always a choice.
Always. That's so important, and a lot of people don't realize that. Like myself, for instance, when I was locked in the world of addiction, which was 40 years ago this year, yay, I'm celebrating 40 years sober. But it wasn't until I dealt with my own addictions that I realized that I had a choice. And a lot of people don't realize. They think that they call it the victim role. They're just stuck as victims.
Yeah, and we can always change things by choosing. And that's the one thing that we've all been given as our birthright when we're born, is freedom of choice. And even if you're in prison, or even if somebody's pushing you around, you can choose how you want to think about it. And so the way we build our lives and the way we grow and change and fulfill ourselves is by making sure we know that we're choosing and choose the best we can choose under a circumstance. It may not be perfect always, but we can. It's just important for me to recognize that.
I'm thinking about this workshop I took once, way before we got married, when I was newly sober. And so it was about the next right choice. It was an all-day workshop. It was a spiritual workshop. And I was so interested in the spirituality of making choices that I devoted a whole day to thinking about it with other people and exploring what is the basis of my choices in life. And up to that point, when I really started realizing that making a choice is a spiritual practice, I didn't really give it any credit at all. I would just, so what? That's what I did, and whether it's right or wrong. But now I realize that even if I make the wrong choice, I can undo it. I can say, oh, what I did was the wrong choice. I can just say that wasn't correct for me. So I'm curious, Carter. So you've come out of 5 weeks of being away from talking to the world here on our podcast, and you chose to do other things with your time. And do you feel that was a good choice?
Yeah, I think they were, but I think one of them is a situation where I don't necessarily choose, but they chose me, and they need me, and they want me to do it, and so I think I'm just gonna, and I've thought about it, and I think I'm just gonna say no, because I've got other things that I want to do, and they're going to require my time, and they're going to require me to be calm and patient and to not get crazy. And I know, again, we spoke about this earlier, that I have a tendency to get to have too much on my plate, and invariably it leads to unrest and not feeling at peace, and so less is more, man.
Less is more.
Especially in our society, the way we just have so much stuff coming at us all the time.
Boy, I'll say.
It's hard to, it's important for me to recognize that I'm just not gonna, it's important to just not do stuff because it just comes up and you can
well, just because
work
it's happening
yourself
doesn't
into,
mean you have to do it, right? Just because something's in front of you, it does not mean that you have to do it, like you say. I mean,
if somebody wants you on a committee, for instance, and you know you can do it and they need you.
Or even buying a dress that you see online. Something not as big as being on a committee, something, like to be responsible for how we spend our energy. That's the spirituality behind making choices, to really take responsibility that's the way our life is going, that we have chosen. Like, it's like driving a car and you come to an intersection and you have a choice of 3 different ways to go. I mean, nobody blindly just goes down a road without knowing, hopefully, which way they're going. So we want to have a little thoughtfulness about that. That's what makes it different when you live a spiritually centered life and one where you're just basically at the whim of whatever is before you, like you said earlier.
And we all have things that we really want to do. Like in my case, I've got these films that I'm making. I'm in the midst of them. And invariably, they get pushed to the bottom with all these obligatory things that come. And so it's important to remember that needs to be put first. It's just like people making an appointment with themselves to do something, and if they don't do it, they just don't do it. And so it's just, in our society, I have come to understand in the last months, and that's one of the reasons that I had to back down behind the podcast, because it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of focus, and I just kind of...
The podcast? To speak for...
Yeah, well, you have to be paying attention, and you
for
have to be
short
thinking
amount
about
of time. It's not like you do homework.
And I just
or
had
anything,
so many
research.
other things that I elected, and I needed to just slow down and have some quiet time, and the quiet time in our society is huge.
Okay, that's great. So people just realize that choices are a wonderful thing that you have control over, that you can decide for yourself which way your life is going. And so, Carter, are you going to ask me what is happening with my choices?
So what's happening with your choices?
Oh,
Des?
Thank you for asking. So I am actually in the midst of something where I have to more or less like whip myself to stay centered, because it's not much fun what I'm doing, but yet it goes against...
It's a culmination of a long time.
It's a culmination of a choice that I made a long time ago, which was to write another book. And in order to bring it to fruition, you don't just write a book and put it in your closet or your drawer or under the bed. Hopefully the world gets to see it. So that takes a lot of work. It's the unpleasant side of self-promoting that I'm talking about. So for me, I choose to know that I have fulfilled my obligation. It's like when you're raising children. You don't just all of a sudden slouch off and
art projects are always hard
and
to
go
finish.
to the beach when you realize you have to provide meals for your kids.
There's a big push at the end of every big art project, like a book or a movie or even paintings and stuff that you're doing with the finish.
Well, it's not just...
Sometimes not as much fun, but you just got to power it through.
Well, there's a big difference between the creating of something, whether it's a dance or a piece of music or a piece of art or a film, whatever, and getting it into the world. And I've always felt very strongly that it's my spiritual obligation to bring my creations to the world, to the best of my ability. I don't get crazy over it if I can't, but at least to, make attempts. And in the world of the internet these days, it's pretty easy to feel that you've done your due diligence by even posting a picture or posting a notice, on social media. I mean, there's a lot you can do to feel that you have participated in that end of the world Whereas before the internet, I used to, tear my hair out saying, how can I connect to the world? I just didn't know how to do that. So the internet has relieved a lot of that, unknown quantity for many of us who just seek to make a connection with the public. And so what are you choosing to do with your time these days, Carter?
I'm choosing to make sure I have a lot of quiet, and I don't get too busy. If I find that I'm getting too busy, I just make sure that I don't accept more things that people want me to do, and I'm much more picky about things that I'm going to do, and things that I'm not, like this other project that I'm involved in. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
I'm laughing because you're saying you're choosing to be quiet, but yet your suitcase is packed and you're ready to go to Vegas.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to have you know what we're going to do? We're going to just play cards in our little hotel room or house, and we're just going to play our little pitch games and laugh and talk with our friends and be relaxed and just not be in any rush.
And go to a show or two.
But I can remember in younger years when it was just balls to the wall all the time, go, 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 and maybe and when I was in the jungle, in the Amazon jungle in my 20s, and we got into a situation where there was nothing. There wasn't even radio. There was only the river and the quiet and this little job we were doing, this hunting job we were doing. But there was endless hours that just went by quietly and slowly with nothing. And the whole American craziness just dropped away. And I got where I could sit for 2 hours and just be patient and be quiet, and it was a great time.
You think you can duplicate that in the middle of Las Vegas?
Yeah. As long as we don't get crazy, and if those guys want to go crazy and go down and run around and do all that, just stay. I just won't go.
I can't wait to hear.
Just go slow.
What your trip is going to be like. You can choose to go
slow, and you can choose to not engage in the madness unless you want to engage.
Yeah.
It's like going to carnival. If you want to get in carnival, have at it. But if you don't want to get in carnival, you don't have to go down there and get in that.
Well, I'll be very curious, Carter, when you come back from Las Vegas to have a report, and that'll be a nice subject for our next little episode on Z-Lord. Well, so with that note, let's send a fond farewell to everybody and have a fantastic time until we talk to you next.
There you go.
And remember,
and choose well.
Yes, remember to choose well.
Make choices that fulfill you, and you can be in service to other people. I'm not saying that you don't serve when you get your opportunities and you choose, because there's a lot of fulfillment in doing that, and it's good to do that. A lot of times it's better to choose to serve others than it is yourself. But just I'm reminding myself that I have ultimate choice, and that it's important to think about my options and to choose the ones that I'm going to get the most bang for the buck, as you would say.
Oh boy, yeah.
Okay.
And also, especially people who have families, obligations, a lot of work responsibilities, it's really important to see how balanced your life is when you're making your choices, so that you don't get overwhelmed and you have plenty of time to have peace and quiet, along with all the many ways that we can serve others and our own fulfillment.
That reminds me of an incident that happened when my son was about 2 years old, and I'm in the garage, and I needed to get this thing done. I was fixing this thing that had some chain and some oil and some stuff where you could mash your fingers, and he was crawling around in there, and he was trying to help me, and I remember getting irritated because he was in the way, and I was telling him, I know you're, and we went on through this long period of time where he was trying to be involved, and I was shoving him out of the way and telling him, now you go sit over there and let Dad finish this, and And that went on for a while, and then it suddenly occurred to me, and I know this happens to all parents, but it suddenly occurred to me that it was much more important for me to engage him in the fixing of that thing, even if it never ever got fixed, than it was for me to get it done and have him not be involved and be sharing together in it. And I remember making that choice right then and there that I was never gonna put stuff like that in front of hanging out with my son. And if it was gonna be slower, then it was gonna be slower. And we didn't get a lot of things done in the world sometimes that wanted to get done. No, but just in other times. But we have a fantastic relationship, and we have a lot of fun, and he feels real secure in himself and that he's valued, and that was a great choice.
Yeah.
And I made it. I remember distinctly because it really was pissing me off because he was in my way. He was bugging me, and I was just telling him to bug off.
Well, that's a great example of making sure that our priorities are right and that they're not screwed up. Because a priority of spending valuable, like quality time with a child is a much better choice than just hurry up and get something done. You know?
But time. I never bought into that quality time thing. I always thought it was just time.
Sorry, did I?
No, it's not sorry. It's just an interesting thing because that's an interesting subject, the quality time
Well, we'll
thing.
bring that up for another episode.
We'll do a quality
we'll
time
do,
thing.
We'll do quality versus like
Just time.
Just time.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, sending off and much love. Om Namah Shivaya.
All right.